Hi, I'm Rebecca. Welcome to my sewing room. This is So Be It. I've had an idea in my head for a dress for quite a while. There are patterns out there, and it's a pretty common dress that I've been wanting to make, but I don't really want to buy a pattern. Since I've been practicing pattern making, I want to do this pattern myself. I want to draft this pattern myself. So my idea is like a handkerchief dress, not with a whole bunch of handkerchiefs together, but with regular fabric in the shape to look like really big handkerchiefs. I have poor drawing skills, so please excuse that. But the idea is it'll be shaped like this and drape at the bottom, a little bit form-fitting at the bust, but then flare out like right under the bust. I drew out here what I'm thinking the shape of the pattern pieces need to be based on the research I've done of looking at the dresses and looking at different patterns for the handkerchief style dress. I think this will be the easiest and probably the best way to do it. Also, because I don't just want like 2 points on the sides, like 2 big squares, I'm having 4 pattern pieces with points on them, and so it'll be like 4 points down. And I also don't want them front, back, and on the sides. They're going to be like 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Finally, I also want the front and back to be the same, and I want to have a seam down the center. For whatever reason, I think it will just give a little bit of, what's the word? It'll break up the fabric a little bit and just give a little bit of design to it other than what the actual fabric is, even though this fabric's pretty busy. I also don't always love big loose dresses. Sometimes I do, especially on the really hot days, big loose and flowy. So because of that, I like to have something a little bit form-fitting. So I'm going to make myself a fabric belt out of whatever leftover fabric that I have for this dress, so I can wear it loose and flowy or belt it up with the fabric belt and make it look nice. The fabric that I have is not regular fabric. It's like not something you would get at Joann's or Hobby Lobby on the bolt. I've done this many times, and many other people have too, because it's a very cheap option. This is a twin size bed sheet. It has somewhat abstract flowers on it, and I really liked the color, and it was only like $4 or something at Salvation Army, and I thought a twin size, it's really good for a basic dress. So it's nothing extravagant. A lot of times if I get sheets specifically for patterns, I'll make sure I get a king so that I have more than enough fabric. But this is what I have, and so this is what I'm using. I'm not going to use any interfacing. I think my thread might be a little bit contrasting because I'm using the thread that I used for that dress, which is a cranberry-ish color, and this is more pink. But it's so busy, and this is a casual dress, so I'm not too worried about it. The fabric's already ready to go. I washed it and dried it when I got home. And it doesn't really seem to wrinkle because it had been balled up for about a week, and there's really no wrinkles in it. So the fabric's ready to go. So now what I need to do is kind of figure out how to pattern this dress pattern. And it's only one piece that I have to do, but because obviously I want it somewhat fitted at the top and the shoulders, I have to figure out how to use my bodice blocks to get this style down. So I will be doing that on camera, so that's the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my front bodice because they're all going to be the same, so I'd rather use this piece. And now I need to, I already have the front and center line cut, and I gave myself space because I'm going to cut 4 pieces and have center seams. I'm now going to use the pivot method as best as I can remember how to do it and get rid of this dart here. I'm using my scissors at this point of the dart and pivoting it to the other leg here, and then finishing off this shoulder strap. And we need to make the armhole. And make this side here. But now this is going to be too high and this is going to be too wide. So I need to figure out how low I want it down, how low I want the V-neck, and how small I want the strap. So the pattern or the black comes all the way up to here. So I'm going to go ahead and put my tape measure there and then just measure down to where I think it would be comfortable. So I'm going to actually go to right about where that seam is. That's 6 inches, so I'll mark that. And then actually I think I'm going to go to about here and have that strap about 2 inches. And then right here is where I start to grade out for the waist, because I always have to grade up at least one size for my waist. So I think right here is where I will be just flaring out more to make it a looser fitting dress. So that'll be the new flare. And then I need to figure out how long I want the front to be. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the same thing and hold it all the way up here again because I still have that mark on my pattern, and then just decide how long I want it in the front from here. Hold on. I'm going to actually drop it this way. That is 34.5 inches. There's our mark for 34.5. Now remember, that's not actually 34 inches long because it is going to be 6 inches lower at the top. Okay. Now, I was originally going to do the same thing and measure how long I wanted the points to be, and then just drop that, or just and put the point on my pattern piece at that spot. However, that's not going to work because of how the dress is going to drape. Obviously, it's not going to stand straight out like that. So I need to kind of just guesstimate where or what length that needs to be. So I'm going to kind of just draw a line and figure it out from there and hope that it's not going to be too long or too big. I do need to actually double check how wide my fabric is because I can't go wider than the fabric that I have. So let me go ahead and double check some measurements and I'll be back. So far this has been just a guessing game. I drew the line here, drew it past here, and I'm trying to figure this out. However, I am just showing you what I'm doing now because I want the point to be further over. So I need to, I think, angle this one more and angle this one less, and angle this one more. And now I'm going to connect these and see how I like that look. I like the look of this pattern piece better. So that's what I'm going to go with. Let me go ahead and fold those lines a little bit. So that's my pattern piece. Now I need to go ahead and add the seam allowance to the whole thing and cut it out, and then I'll be back. So I did just realize there's a little bit of a better way to do this. Let me point you. So when I was measuring this across, I realized that these 2 points here should be lined up, and they are not. So I'm going to go ahead and line that point up with this point, which means I need to raise it up, and then I'll have to redraw this. So I'm using this to get the square, and then I'll go all the way across with this and put a point right here. Okay, now I still want my point here, so I have my line here just fine, but I need to fix this one. I already think that looks better. Unfortunately, this will be a little bit confusing, but it will be fine. I have my 1 inch seam allowance here because I'm going to do a 1/2 inch rolled hem. It'll be easier to see, obviously, once I get it cut out. But here and then there is my new pattern line. Take that all the way through the seam allowance. Every other seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch. So I have all 4 of my pieces cut out. You can't really see it. At the point, you can't tell on the camera, but I don't have all of my 1 inch seam allowance at the point, but I do have all of the entire pattern pieces at the point. So when I do the rolled hem at the point, I'm going to have to fold it in goofy anyways because of how the pattern is. So I'm going to have to just figure out how to fold that up or to hem that up, but that'll be at the end when I'm actually hemming the dress. Now this is the leftover fabric that I have, and I want to make a belt. So I'm going to go ahead and use that fold there just because it's already there and it's easy. Okay, so I want this belt decently wide. I'm going to go ahead and make it 4 inches and give myself a 1/2 inch seam allowance on the whole thing. So technically it'll be 8 inches, but because I'm doing it on the fold, 4 inches from the fold. And then how long do I want it? I'm gonna make this pretty much as long as I can. So 4 inches wide or 8 inches wide if you're doing one piece, and as long as you want. Make sure it's over your waist measurement so that you can obviously tie it. If you always want to tie it in a bow, make sure that it is on the longer side. If you just want to tie it in a knot, it can be a little bit shorter. So since I'm kind of just winging this, I am going to go ahead and cut out my belt, and then I'll let you know how long I end up making it. Half width is 4 inches, and I measured, and it is right about 68 inches long. So for me, that should be more than enough. My waist is 37 inches, so I should be able to tie it into a knot or tie it into a bow if I want to. Again, this is just going to be a little like sash tie, not a regular belt, so that I can throw it on at my waist and cinch in this dress. Okay, so in order to make this dress, I am not going to do anything fancy with it. I think I'm going to go ahead and try French seams because I've got the fabric to do that. And obviously the arms are going to be a rolled hem, the neck is going to be a rolled hem, and the bottom is going to be a rolled hem. The tie, I will be stitching right sides together and then turning that right side out and pressing that completely. There's nothing fancy on this. I will be adding a tag just so that I always wear it the same direction, with the back to the back and the front to the front. Even though these are not two different pattern pieces, it's all the same. So here we go. I think that might be all I have for you right now, and if I come across anything that I need to let you know about, I will tell you, but for now, I guess here's some sewing footage, and I will see you at the final product. So in sewing, especially when you're making garments, you need to finish your seams. When you finish your seams, you're stitching them or doing something to them, basically so that they don't fray and they don't turn into a big old mess on the inside of your clothing. Knit fabric has a chance to fray much less, so I don't always finish my seams in knit fabric, but I always use something in my woven fabric just to make sure that my seams will look nice. A lot of times I actually bind my seams with bias tape and things. With this dress, I don't want to do that because of the flowy feel and drape of the fabric, but it is going to fray. It doesn't fray a whole heck of a lot right away, but once it starts to fray, it frays pretty quickly. So I need to finish that. I didn't want to just pink and stitch my seams. I do that quite often, especially if I'm using cotton. But this is not a cotton, it's a synthetic, it's some sort of polyester. So it's still going to fray even a little bit, and I just don't want that to happen. So I'm not pinking them. I've decided to do a French seam. What is a French seam? A French seam is basically a seam within a seam. We pin our fabric right sides together instead of wrong sides together, which I do have already pinned for my front center seam ready to go. You do a narrow hem there, about 3/8 of an inch, and then you trim that down to 1/4 inch or less, and then you turn your fabric right sides together and stitch another seam over where that seam already is. So basically it's a double stitched seam. I will show you how to do that as well. So I'm going to do that to all of the seams, the 4 seams, the front, the back, and the side seams for this dress, so that everything will be nice and enclosed and hidden and will not fray. All right, so there's the seam, excuse me, from the inside. And it looks like a regular seam on the outside. So I'm gonna do that to the other 3 seams and the shoulder seams when I sew them front to back as well. And then I'll be back with the final product. So when it came to patterning this dress, I didn't really have any ideas what I was doing or really how to do it. All I had ever seen was pictures of these handkerchief dresses and a couple line drawings, but nothing specific and nothing really about how I need to do this. So there's a few things that I will be making changes on this pattern in the future for the next one. And I do have a few sheets left over that I will be able to try this pattern out on before I use my really nice fabric that I like. So one of the things I am going to have to change is my sleeves or my shoulder straps fit a lot lower on my shoulders than what they're actually supposed to be. I'm not sure why that is. So I'm going to have to figure out, well, I'm going to have to move them in a bit, obviously, on my next pattern. And that should open up and have it all sit where it needs to. The neckline is not as smooth as I would have liked it to be. And this was the first part of the dress that I actually finished. And I realized it was not easy. The fabric is really, really thin. So the double rolled hem that you have to have so that you don't have any raw edges is not crisp and it's not smooth. And I don't know if that's because of the old fabric or just because how much it slides against itself and how thin it is. So once I finished the neckline, I decided I have some bias tape. So I'm going to do bias tape on my armholes. And I don't know if it was because of that is part of the problem, or if it's just how I drafted the pattern. Also, for whatever reason, it keeps wanting to ride up, like pull itself up on my shoulders. I'm not sure why that is. So on my next one, when I change the armholes, I may leave the bust the way it is right now so that I can see if this is the problem or if the bust is the problem. As I was sewing the front to the back, it's not even. My pattern pieces are not even. They should have all lined up right where they needed to be. And for whatever reason, one side of both front and back, just the one side, was like 1.5 inches to 2 inches, pretty close. Yeah, 1.5 inches to 2 inches longer or shorter than the other one. I'm not sure why that is. So I will be doing some redrafting of this pattern to figure that out. Otherwise, like, the belt is really nice. It could be a touch longer, but it doesn't have to be if I'm just doing a knot. I do like the option of having 2 different dresses. If I'm just hanging out at home and I just want to throw something on, I don't need to belt this. However, I did notice, to me, it reminds me of a muumuu. So if I wear this out anywhere, I will make sure that I wear my belt with it so that it is cinched in and looks a little bit more put together. Oh yeah, finally, again, because of the neckline, I had some extra wide single fold bias tape, and I know it's not pink, and it definitely is not good because I did not have long enough fabric for the points of my dress, so they ended up being flat. That's okay, I'll get it all figured out. But the hem is bias taped because of how thin the fabric is. So that means that it doesn't hang and drape quite as it normally would if it didn't have that thicker cotton bias tape on there, but it worked out. For the size of this, I actually needed 2 packages of bias tape. I had one line that does not have a bias tape edge on it because I didn't want to go to the store. So I left it that way. So there is a bit of a gap here with no bias tape, but it's the back and it's the bottom, and this is just a casual, I tried the pattern dress, so hopefully that's just fine. Just running around town, doing my errands, cleaning my house, that kind of thing. Daily wear, comfortable, throw on dress. And I do really, really like the fabric that the sheet ended up being. It's fun. All right. So look for some alterations to this pattern in the future. You will see as I work on figuring out this dress. So while I was just sitting here thinking about this pattern, I did realize why the dress keeps wanting to move itself up on me. I took out the bust dart or the shoulder dart, but I did not move it into anything else. And you are supposed to do that for the pivot method, unless you actually enlarge the side seams. And I did not enlarge the side seams at my bust, which either I could next time just go straight out from the underarm and enlarge it that way, or it'll definitely hang better that way, or I will move the shoulder dart into a side bust dart, but then I won't be able to have the same front and back, so that would be a little bit harder. So there's a couple options that I have, but I'll figure it out when I do make my next dress. But I have figured out why this does not fit quite right. So thank you for watching this week. If you liked my video, hit the like button for me. If you want to make sure you see all of my videos, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to be notified so that you don't miss anything that I post, go ahead and hit that notification bell, and YouTube will let you know every single time I post. Thank you for watching Rebecca's Sewing Room. This was So Be It.